Hey folks, medical threat assessment today on TacMed TV. Hey folks, Steve here with TacMed TV. Today we're gonna change it up a lot compared to what the last two videos have been. The needle chest decompression, which I'll put a link to it, put a YouTube card up here in the corner. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's a really good video. And then the last video I did, which was the nasopharyngeal airways. Listen, folks, if you haven't seen that one, you really need to check it out. Jim Williams helped me with that one, and it was, let's just say the video went a little bit sideways. I'll put a YouTube card up in the corner for that one too, so go check those out if you haven't already. But today I want to talk to you about medical threat assessments. This is more administrative, paperwork type of stuff. It's going to be nothing like the last two. Okay, just bear with me. I'm coughing still. Feel like I'm starting to catch some bronchitis. And so just forgive me if I start coughing and having some coughing fits or whatever. We'll try to just power through it. All right. Medical threat assessment, the one that we use is pretty much a 6-page document that lays out your medical resources and the other threats that you may encounter during an operation or training. Okay, at the very top of the page you start out with your operation location and the operation type. You know, what type of operation you're on. Are you doing a high-risk search warrant? Are you on a barricade? Are you on a hostage rescue? Depends on what you're doing, that goes in there. Alright, and then the first thing it lists is the local medical facility for where you're working, the name of that local facility, the phone number. I usually use the emergency department phone number for that number. Of course, you're going to put their address, the point of contact. The point of contact I use is the charge nurse on duty. Talk to the charge nurse, let them know what's going on. If they have a specific phone that they're carrying around, specific phone number for them that they can be reached directly, there's a place on here for that as well. You also, there's a spot on here for travel time, travel by land and travel by air, and then you've got some yes or no questions. Do they have a helipad, yes or no? If yes, is it elevated, is it at ground level, or is it some other site that's yet to be determined? So those go through those, answer those, and then move on to the next. The next yes or no question is a 24-hour ED. Do they have emergency medical physicians on staff? Do they have a dedicated medevac? And then any additional comments that you need to make. The next one is your trauma center, and it's the same information. Okay, and just so you know, I'll put a link in the description below to a medical threat assessment that you can download and you can look at and you can basically use as your own. Okay, just change the stuff at the top of the page, put your logo and your letterhead at the top of the page and roll with it. Okay, that's pretty much what everybody does. All right, but the next one is your trauma center. Asks all the same questions. The next one is your burn center. Asks all the same questions. On page 2 at the very top is the EMS service for that area that you're working in. Make sure you get the name of that service, the number for that service. Usually that can be their dispatch center, but get an address. Also get a point of contact. That's usually going to be whoever the EMS supervisor is that day. Make sure you get a phone number directly to them, something that they have direct access to that you can reach them directly. You also want to know how many ALS units they have on staff. You also want to know how many BLS units they have on staff, and if they have aircraft, you want to know that as well. And then, of course, any other comments that you have, put that in there with that section as well. All right. The next thing on here is the helicopter plan. The helicopter plan has a little bit more stuff. Of course, it's got a name and a phone number, address, point of contact. All of that you're going to go through just like the other stuff. Landing zone requirements. What their minimum size is to land, what their preferred size is to land. We're really lucky where I work, the area that I work, we have pre-established landing areas, PILA sites, where we can send them that the pilots, the have already scouted these out and said, yep, these are good to go. We'll use this spot as a landing area. So that's already been taken care of. You just have to figure out, depending upon what area you're in, which PILA site that you're gonna use. Okay. Some yes or no questions for the helicopters is, what is the agency policies on flight over a tactical hot zone, landing in a tactical hot zone, tactical team weapons on board, transport of hazmat exposures, and transport of prisoners. Okay, those are things that need to be filled out. All right, it's also got a spot here for the radio frequencies that they use, and it's the aircraft type, the number of patients that they can carry, and how those helicopters are staffed. Okay, on the third, excuse me, I'm sorry, I got to get a drink of something here. There we go. So anyway, the next page, page 3, is environmental threats. You need to put your temperature, wind speed, humidity, if it's raining or not, and then any comments that you may want to make. And that's where I kind of like to look at the forecast and see, you know, what's predicted. Are you expecting rain? Are you expecting snow? Is it going to be sunny? Is it going to be, you know, 140 degrees in the shade kind of thing? That's the stuff that you'll put in that comment section, okay? And then below that, they've got a place here for heat casualties likely or cold casualties likely. Make sure you've got your rehydration logistics in place, any uniform adjustments that need to be made, of course, work cycles. If you're doing something that's an extended operation, you need to set up your work cycles. And do you need to have some type of shelter in place for your officers? And then also, is air medical evacuation likely to be disrupted by the weather? Okay, call them up, call your nearest air service, whoever you're going to use, and ask them. Okay, when you're filling this out, call them and ask them, hey, what's your flight status? How's it looking for later? You know, get in there and just ask them. All right, the next part on that section is the hazardous materials threats, and if you have any possibility of hazmat exposures, you know, is that likely? Are chemicals stored on the property or nearby? Are there any industrial hazards nearby? And of course, it's also got the number for Chemtrek, and it's got a space here for whatever chemicals that you may come in contact with. If you know that they're there, there's a place here for you to list those out. Below that, as far as uniform adjustments go, do we have to have protective clothing? Do we need SCBAs, self-contained breathing apparatus? Do we have decon logistics in place? Have we notified the fire rescue hazmat team to let them know, hey, we may need a decon set up? And do we have a place to set them up? And then any comments that you need to make below that. And then, of course, on page 4, we've got animal threats. And that's indigenous animals. Like if you're traipsing through the woods, you need to be worried about snakes and spiders and ticks and fleas and the little no-see-ums that just aggravate you to death. How do you deal with that? Is that a possibility that you're going to run into? All right, domestic animals, you know, yard sharks, dogs, you know, are they at this residence? Cats, whatever. Do you know if they have any type of exotic pets? You know, that needs to be documented in here too, and everybody needs to be kind of aware when they're walking in what could possibly transpire. All right, and then some more yes or no questions. Guard dogs, watch dogs likely to be encountered. Police horses, are they going to be utilized? We don't use police horses, so that's always going to be a no for us. But then will police dogs, canine officers be utilized? And we do that on occasion, okay? Next is biological threats, and these are some more yes or no questions, but any threats associated with biomedical research, exposure to human body fluids likely. Really? Medics, have your universal precautions on. And incidentally, the next yes or no question is universal precautions implemented. Yeah, do that every time. You know, I'll put a set of gloves on, and then I'll put my Nomex gloves over on top of that. Okay, so make sure that you've got your eye protection, face mask if you need it. Make sure it's somewhere where you can get to it, and you've got your gloves on. Any contamination of the water source that you're using likely. Any type of specific exposure control strategies that you need to implement, there's a spot here for you to document those as well. All right, moving on down, you've got plant threats, and that's talking about poison oak, poison sumac, poison ivy, that kind of stuff. Make your uniform adjustments appropriately and accordingly, and then have a plan for decontamination if that becomes an issue. Okay. Other support services at the bottom of page 4, that's where you put your veterinary care information. Like I said earlier, if you're using canine, make sure you get with that canine officer. They're going to have a vet, they're going to have an information card, or at least they'll have the information for the veterinarian that's going to take care of that canine officer, that's going to take care of that canine officer if something were to happen. So same information here is with the hospitals. The name, the phone number, the address, a point of contact, travel time to the facility, and what type of services do they offer. Canine services, do they offer equine services if you are using police horses. These are things that need to be planned out ahead of time. Okay. On page 5, real quick, we're just rolling through this here because I don't want to bore you to death. But real quick, on page 5, at the top is Public Works. We want to make sure that if there's any street closings, we know about them, because there's nothing worse than going on your operation, going to do this warrant, and finding out that the way you're going to go is closed down because Public Works has got something going on there, and you've got to divert and come in another way. That can just mess your whole day up. So you need to find that out ahead of time. Any comments you need to make in that section, there's a place for it. All right. Social services. Are there children at risk? You know, when you've done the drive-by on the target location, do you see toys, anything like that out there that could be a clue that says, hey, there's probably children here. So that needs to be added onto here. Okay, we need to get social services involved. If there's children in the residence, then we've got that information here to do that. Okay. Also, the possibility of a pediatric level 1 trauma center. Okay, there's not really a place for that in the threat assessment. What I do is under the trauma center, I list out the stuff for the pediatric trauma center as well. All the same information. And then are there any schools in the area? If there are, you need to find out, you know, who the point of contact is for that school. Let them know what's going on. Even if it's an off time, if it's in the middle of the night, that's something, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I kind of like to let what do they call it? The school, not the school board, but the school district, whoever's in charge of the school district or their designee, I'd like to let them know that, hey, we're doing something in case something goes completely sideways and we end up having to be in that school. We don't want kids showing up. We want somebody to know that you're not going to come here. Okay, so that's important to get this information. And then at the bottom, it's got any additional comments that you want to make. Now, page 6 is nothing more than a hazardous materials data sheet. If you come into specific hazardous materials, obviously you need to fill one of these out for each one that you potentially come into contact with. If you get on a scene and you start seeing stuff and you can identify it, fill it out so you know, look up the information. And this is something that you may have to do on scene, but if you know about it ahead of time, fill one of these out so everybody is aware of what the potential threats are with that hazardous substance. Okay, so anyway, so that's it. That's the medical threat assessment in just a few minutes. I blew through it really fast. I'm sorry about that, but I didn't want to take a whole lot of time and just drag through it and slog through it and have you guys, you know, lose interest in it. Like I said, I'll put a link to it, to a medical threat assessment that you can look at in the description link below. I highly suggest that you check that out and just look through it and see what you think, and implement that if you're not already. Implement that into your training and your call-out operations. Okay. So with that being said, I appreciate you all watching the videos. I appreciate every one of you for taking the time to support me, my little channel that I have here, and what I'm trying to do. If you haven't subscribed, please think about subscribing. I'll put the subscription button over here in the corner somewhere for you to hit. I'll sprinkle some more videos around for you all to check out. And again, thank you so much for checking out my little channel here that I have. I hope you get something out of it. And until next time, you guys stay safe. And my name is Steve from TacMed TV.